I want to welcome next Director and Williams Chair of the Museum of Fine Arts here in Houston, Gary Tinterow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like many of you here today, I am who I am because I grew up in Houston, Texas. And on the occasion of the installation of Imam Abdullah Antepli as director of the Rothko Chapel, or president, I'm delighted for this opportunity to relate some of my own experiences here to help underscore the importance of this institution as you chart your future role. In 1971, when the chapel and the broken obelisk were dedicated, I was a student at Bel Air High School, a school whose students brought to court and won the right of freedom of written expression the previous year. Some of you may have heard, others will remember our student newspaper, The Plain Brown Watermelon. It went to court. Civil rights and civic responsibilities were subjects hotly debated among my friends, and the meaning of the broken obelisk and the guiding principles of the chapel were completely in sync with the urgent issues of that day. And on a parallel track, and this is personal, I was intensely interested in architecture, and I haunted construction sites around the city, parsed newspaper accounts for the latest information. For me, architecture wasn't an abstraction, it was something concrete occurring throughout Houston, thanks to tastemakers like the de Menils and Gerald Hines. So I was keenly fascinated by the progress of this project, to the point of making a cardboard model on my desk at home with a wobbly, broken obelisk made of shirt cardboards and a hidden toothpick. I was and still am deeply connected to this site. I was inspired by John and Dominique de Menil's goal of influencing a better society by bringing superlative works of art to Houston, and by conspicuously encouraging interfaith and interracial communication. And that made me feel part of a world larger than the world I actually inhabited. It resonated with me, and it formed my sensibilities as a high school student, and helped to propel me into a life of curiosity about people and cultures different from my own, as well as to commit myself to public education and service. My own experiences here in the 1970s remain the basis of conviction and the value of my work at my museum. I know there are kids who wander in here and there every day and discover something unexpected. That discovery can be the beginning of a life of wonder. It was for me. And Abdullah, the chapel can do something else. It need not always be a site of activism. It can be a refuge from the world we inhabit. Here I want to borrow the inspiring words of a friend of mine, the remarkable Kashmiri artist Rakib Shah. He recently created a painting, I think it's his masterwork. It's called Ode to a Country Without a Post Office. It took several years for him to make, and then several years for us to convince him to sell it to the Museum of Fine Arts Houston. When he finally relented, and it will soon be on view, he wrote us a statement. He said, "When I began the painting, I wasn't thinking about a scene in an ordinary sense. I was thinking about what happens inside us when the world outside loses its shape. When cities burn, when people turn against one another, and one's only shelter is a small space of thought and feeling that still remains one's own." For many, the Rothko Chapel is that space, the space of thought and feeling that remains one's own. Describing the representation of architecture in his painting, he could have been speaking of the Rothko Chapel. He said, "The architecture does not belong to any one creed. It's a symbol of religious harmony, an ascetic testament to how different beliefs and cultures can coexist. Within the geometry, color, and rhythm lies the hope that beauty itself might be the last surviving language that unites us all. Abdullah, I have no doubt that you understand the power of the space and institution that you serve. It is, and to quote again from my friend Rakib Shah, a place of reflection in which one can nurture an inner fire of inspiration, of love, of acceptance, of hope, in order to send out whatever light one can, however faint, into the surrounding universe.